and thank you so much for being here today for the launch of the 4th edition of the Public Affairs Index, PI 2019. I am Aparna Shivaraman, and I will be your host for the evening. On behalf of the PAC team, I welcome all of you here today. I would like to invite our dignitaries, Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan, Dr. Milind Tambe, and Mr. G. Gurucharan to kindly take their seats on the dais. We have a distinguished panel with us today. Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan is currently the Chairman, Public Affairs Center, and Chairman, Committee for National Education Policy. He is also the Chancellor of the Central University of Rajasthan and the Chairman of the Karnataka Knowledge Commission. He is an Emeritus Professor of the National Institute of Advanced Studies and an Honorary Distinguished Scientific Advisor at the Indian Space Research Organization. Earlier, as chairman of ISRO, he oversaw the space program of India between the years of 1994 and 2003. He has been conferred with the highest civilian honors, the Padma Shri, the Padma Bhushan, and the Padma Vibhushan by the President of India. Dr. Milind Tambe is a Gordon Mackay Professor of Computer Science and the Director of the Center for Research in Computation and Society at the Harvard University. He is also the Director of AI for Social Good at the Google India Research Center. Professor Tambe's research focuses on advancing artificial intelligence and multi-agent systems research for social good. Examples of his work include AI for the protection of endangered wildlife, forests, and fisheries, AI for public health and social work, and AI for public safety and security. His research focuses on fundamental problems in computational game theory, machine learning, automated planning, intelligent agents, and multi-agent interactions that are driven by these topics, ensuring a virtuous cycle of research and real-world applications. Mr. G. Gurucharan is presently the Director of the Public Affairs Center. Prior to joining PAC, Mr. Golerkeri served in the Indian Administrative Services for 34 years before retiring as Secretary to the Government of India, New Delhi, in December 2016. Mr. Golerkeri's expertise is at the intersection of development, migration, and gender. I would now request Mr. G. Gurucharan, Director of Public Affairs Center, to deliver the welcome address.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me extend a very warm welcome to all of you this evening to this very important event, the release of the Public Affairs Index 2019. We have two exceptionally distinguished guests, so it's my privilege to extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Kasturi Rangan. I need hardly tell any of you that his leads such a hectic life that he's mostly living out of suitcases and traveling so much that we are truly grateful that he is with us today. Similarly, Dr. Milind Tambe has come from very far. It was very difficult for us to get him, but thank you, Professor Tambe, for having joined us, and very warm welcome to you. I see in the audience several very senior people, members of the board of the Public Affairs Center. Dr. Sudarshan is here, many others are here. I see a lot of senior representatives of industry. I see Mr. Singhvi here. I see Shekhar Vishwanathan here. There are many senior government officers from the government of Karnataka, as also other governments, and retired IAS officers. I want to acknowledge all of them and extend a very warm welcome this evening. In particular, I want to welcome two people. One is Jayashree Raghunandan, Additional Chief Secretary, Tamil Nadu, who's come at very short notice because Tamil Nadu has played an important role in its performance. You'll hear from Mudita later. And Mr. P.S. Reddy, who represents, again, a senior IAS officer representing Government of Goa. Some 3 months ago, when we were at this very venue celebrating our Silver Jubilee, Dr. Kasturi Rangan asked of me a question. He said, now that we have finished 25 years and are looking ahead at the next 25 years, we should, Gurucharan, reflect on who we are and what we do. And that set me thinking. And trust me when I say this, I have been thinking about it the last 3-4 months. 25 years ago, PAC was conceived of a simple idea Dr. Samuel Paul wanted to simply assess the adequacy and quality of services, public services, particularly at the time in Bangalore and later, of course, in other parts of Karnataka. From that simple idea was born a more important movement, that of social accountability in public governance. PAC's mandate has really been to see how we might advance social accountability in public governance, and that is how the most important tool, the Citizen Report Card, was born. I'm very proud to say that it was Public Affairs Center which pioneered the Citizen Report Card, and then moved on to use the Community Scorecard as a qualitative tool, thus combining both quantitative and qualitative methods to try and look at governance from bottom up, from the perspective of the citizen, from the perspective of the common man. Over time, we moved on to action research, and I only want to say that the Public Affairs Index, which is a composite index that measures the adequacy and quality of governance at the subnational level in the states of India, is a natural progression of the work that Public Affairs Center has been doing. And on this occasion, I must acknowledge the contribution made by Dr. C.K. Matthew, our senior fellow, who actually, shall I say, invented the Public Affairs Index. He's not here today, but nonetheless, I want to place on record our deep appreciation of his contribution. So from an epistemological perspective, what the Public Affairs Index 2019 does is that it signals a paradigm shift from the past, from what I am fond of describing as epistemic rhetoric, that is the presentation of knowledge as observers. PAC is now moving to epistemic humility, that is to understand how development processes work in themselves and what the experiential aspects of development problems are. So is PI a good index? Why should academics or state governments go by the Public Affairs Index? Though I'm glad to say that one of the pioneering governments, Tamil Nadu, has actually initiated reforms based on the Public Affairs Index, just as the Himachal Pradesh government has in the past years. But our effort in PI 2019 was really to try and establish an empirical relationship between governance performance and development outcomes. So the construction of the composite index, we wanted to make sure, was scientific, was methodologically rigorous, the choice of the indicators inclusive, and therefore that we produce an index which, if I was to highlight a single quality of the Public Affairs Index 2019, it is that it's ideologically agnostic and therefore completely objective, because it's the model, the PI 2019 model, that generates the values on the indicators, the weights assigned, and the ranking of states. The PI 2009, however, from again an epistemological perspective, raises two risks that I would like to share with you. One is the risk of self-knowledge. PI 2019 will confront you with what you already know. So many of you might leave asking the question, so what was it that I did not know that they have pointed out to? And our reply to that is, PI 2019, while presenting to you what you already know, invites and provokes you to see what you know in new ways. What we know from familiar, unquestioned settings will appear strange. Once the familiar turns strange, there is a loss of innocence, especially for those who are in public governance. 2019 PI report challenges established assumptions and settled beliefs. I just want to make a small diversion here and quote what our chairman said when he was overseeing the whole process of Pi being developed. And the scientific rigor was largely because of the chairman's initiative. And he said to me just a week ago that, this global hunger report, which places India at rank 103, is a bit of a conundrum for me. I mean, I'm puzzled. How is it that we are 103, lower than most of the other countries in South Asia? And I liked what he said. He said, Gurucharan, we need to either contest this or we need to resolve this. So in the next Pi 2020, we are going to go beyond what we have done here and try and make it better. The second risk that you will face when you read the Pi report is what I would describe as a characteristic evasion that arises of skepticism. If so many in the past could not resolve these problems, how can we? A lot of young officers here, Reju is one of them, for instance, leading the education department in a brilliant fashion, and we've worked very closely with him. Just as we are working with the health department. And to that our reply is that that's where Dr. Milind Tambe comes into the picture. He has demonstrated the power of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and computational game theory applications in resource-constrained operational frameworks that typically circumscribe state governments as also the national government. And he has demonstrated that you can use the power of technology for social good. He is currently here trying to establish a Center for AI for Good. We are, I'm happy to say, in a conversation with him, and we will build a collaboration with Dr. Tambe. So, in conclusion, I start with the question that Dr. Kasturi Rangan had asked, who we are and what we do. We are moving to the next level of using data science and artificial intelligence to try and see if we can help improve the quality of governance at the subnational level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. May I now request Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan, Chairman, Public Affairs Center, to present the inaugural address.
Gurucharan and ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be in the midst of this very distinguished and erudite gathering this evening on the important occasion of the release of the Public Affairs Index 2019. As Chairman of the Public Affairs Center, it's my pleasure to join Gurucharan to welcome all of you. I think, as Gurucharan rightly mentioned, from the early days in which Dr. Samuel Paul wanted this unique institution to come into being, particularly to evaluate and comment on the public service, the quality of public service, and the initial citizens' report card, things have evolved, both in terms of scope, as content, as well as the methodologies that have been adopted. As you know, just even at the cost of repeating what Gurucharan mentioned, PAC engages in action research, focusing in sustainable development goals in the context of India, improve the quality of governance in India, deploy innovative social accountability tools for quality and adequacy of public services. Over the years, the scope has evolved. A whole gamut of research, advocacy, and action to ensure evidence-based ground governance across sectors, geography, and population today is the direction in which this activity is moving. So it is against this perspective that we need to see the continuous effort that Dr. Guricharan and his colleagues have been making to, on one side, refine the approaches, make it more rigorous, and make it more objective. The subjectivity is removed as much as possible. And on the other side, also to look at the relative areas with the purpose that the last mile that is typical of any kind of a service that we give, how do you evaluate and quantify it and provide it as a feedback in an overall loop, which starts with the definition of a service. This is just to give the first glimpse of what I see as an evolution of this very important activity, a very noble activity and noble approach that initially Dr. Samuel Paul conceived. Coming to today's function, I must congratulate the PAC and Gurcharan for producing a scientifically rigorous report. What impressed me the most about the PI 2019 is the fact that the model that you have developed generates values, the weights, and the ranks, thus eliminating all subjectivity. Add to this the fact that you have drawn on the official data from the states, removes any speculation on the choice of data sets, thus making the ranking of states an objective assessment in our view. The PI 2019 that we will be releasing today seeks to demonstrate two important empirical facts. First, that the quality of governance shapes development outcomes in substantiative ways. Second, that development by its intrinsic quality rests on three pillars: growth, equity, and sustainability. The organic unity of this trinity, as you will see, is at the heart of our findings. When we reflect on the world that we live in today, it's difficult to miss the fact that widening income inequality is the defining challenge of our times. This is as true for India. While doubtless we have made great strides on human development, and there are significant achievements that we ought to be legitimately proud of as a society, we remain a work in progress. The true measure of progress of a society is not measured at its apex, but at its base. This is precisely what PI 2019 does. The mixed results of development manifest in iniquities in the access to equality education, healthcare, and economic opportunities. The Comprehensive National Nutrition Survey, the results of which were announced recently, observes, and I quote, India's impressive economic growth has led to considerable progress in improving livelihoods for the most vulnerable. This dynamic progress lifted 271 million people out of poverty in one decade. But strong income inequality persists. Malnutrition has been identified as one of the principal causes limiting India's global economic potential. This is the Copenhagen Census 2012. The remaining socio-economic inequalities have stifled more equitable growth and subsequent economic expansion. I unquote. Not surprisingly then, the extent of inequality, its drivers, and what to do about it has emerged as the central issues that should engage all of us, governments, civil society, academia, policymakers, and researchers alike. The burden of responding to this challenge rests largely with the states of India, simply because the key human development sectors are by the Constitution the mandate of the states. Against this background, the objective of the Public Affairs Index is twofold. First, we show why public policy at the state level must focus primarily on human development, education, health, and livelihoods, and why it matters for growth and equity. The recommendations that flow therefrom serve as useful pointers for policy interventions that are geography and context specific. Second, we investigate what explains the divergent trends in inequality and development across the states of India, with a particular focus on its impact on the disadvantaged and vulnerable populations. It's clear that in addressing the problem of exclusion, the states are faced with the hard end of the problem, persistent, chronic, and endemic deprivation, specific geographies, and specific populations. The conclusion that we might draw is the necessity of exploring disaggregated, resource sensitive, and mission mode interventions. What the findings of PII 2019 show is that there cannot be a one-size-fits-all approach in any state. In our aspiration to move towards becoming a fair, just, and equitable society, the appropriate strategy depends on the objective conditions of development, the underlying drivers, and space-specific institutional settings obtaining in each state. In the more advanced states, the focus should perhaps be on market reforms to increase human capital and skills. In other more backward states, ensuring greater financial inclusion and creating incentives for lowering informality should gain precedence. Ladies and gentlemen, irrespective of the level of economic development, there is enormous evidence that better access to education and health care on the one hand, and ensuring that labor market institutions do not excessively penalize the poor can help raise the income share for the poor and the middle class. In the discourse on the trade-off or on the seeming conflict between the virtues of growth and equity, it is necessary to pause, reflect on, and emphasize the subtle yet profound distinction that needs to be made between inequality of outcomes measured by income or wealth and the inequality of opportunity, attributable to the differences in circumstances, gender, location of birth, or family background. From a public policy perspective, the question to ask is why, despite the considerable social sector spending in the states of India and the hard work and commitment of the executive, especially the civil servants, the rights, opportunities, and aspirations from the human development perspective remain severely constrained. Why opportunity continues to elude those most in need. As somebody who comes from the field of science, having served in the vantage positions of public governors, and hence having seen public policy action works in India, especially at the subnational level, I would list two issues that should engage our attention in this context. First, the urgent need to apply data science, especially the data analytics, to policy formulation and program design. This constitutes a necessary condition to understand root causes and establish an empirical relation between the problem and its resolution. As a scientist, I dare say the time has come to adopt simulation and modeling to human development practice to understand whether, under what conditions and in which ways, an aspect of a policy or an important part of a program might fail and what implementation risks it can withstand. I want to commend the initiative that Gurucharan has taken as the director of the Public Affairs Center to establish the Center for Open Data Research that will do precisely this: apply data analytics in the social sector, help governments advance evidence-based decision making. The PI 2019 is exemplary as a case point. It uses a rigorous scientific methodology in analyzing government data to produce a composite index that captures the multidimensional aspects of governance. The second aspect that public policy researchers and practitioners should do is to bridge the wide gap with the domain knowledge in the domains of human development and the subject specialist knowledge of artificial intelligence and machine learning. In essence, You must embrace the world of logarithmic approaches to solving problems by adopting artificial intelligence and machine learning. The rationale is compelling. All governments, especially those at the subnational level, operate in a resource constrained operational framework. Financial, human, and physical resources will in the foreseeable future remain well short of demand. I am delighted that we have with us Professor Milind Tambe from Harvard. He has done pioneering work in applying computational game theory and the application of AI for social good. I learned from Gurucharan that they have commenced a conversation on how best to collaborate and build a strong partnership between the work that Public Affairs Center does and the work that Professor Tambe does. I look forward to see that potential partnership blossom. I once again congratulate Gurucharan. I think you have done more than this in many aspects of taking the PAC to front-ranking research, front-ranking reports that are coming out, and your interaction with both the state governments, central governments, as well as other bodies, both national and international, I think is already showing up several very good results. And I'm sure in the years to come, this is going to make a difference to PAC. I once again congratulate you for this particular work, for producing what I believe is a report that meets high standards of scientific rigor. I'm sure Public Affairs Center will continue with its commitment to advancing social accountability in public governance with added resolve. I wish all of you a happy Deepavali. May the light of knowledge and prosperity always fill your life. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to call on stage Ms. Udita Datta, Team Lead Public Affairs Index 2019, to present the study and the nuances that make the Public Affairs Index 2019 unique. As the team lead, Udita has been instrumental in ensuring the scientificity of the model and making sure that PI 2019 is robust and objective.
Before Udita begins, I would be remiss if I didn't say this, because I missed it out in my opening remarks, that this remarkable effort of producing PI 2019 was led by Udita. I want to acknowledge her. I want to acknowledge Aparna, who was the team member. I want to acknowledge Mrinalini. Where's Mrinalini? Here, Mrinalini. And Dr. Asha Subramanian is not here, but I want to acknowledge her as well. They've done a remarkable job and truly demonstrated an excellent work ethic. Thank you, all of you.
Good evening, everyone. Honorable and respected Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan, esteemed Dr. Milind Tambe, respected Mr. G. Gurucharan, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues. By now, I'm sure all of you know what the Public Affairs Index is all about. But to simply put in layman's term, Public Affairs Index is a data-driven framework wherein we have ranked all the 30 states of India on various parameters of governance. Before I explain what Public Affairs Index 2019 is, I would like to take all of you through how the present PI 2019 model has addressed each and every major feedback which we had received from last year. So the first lacune was the existence of autocorrelation. So in PI 2018, we had an amalgamation of 100 indicators, and the existence of 100 indicators led to a serious problem of the existence of autocorrelation. This year in PI 2019, I'm very proud to say that we have incorporated one of the statistical techniques, which is called the factor analysis, which helps you to pick up only those specific indicators which are statistically significant. The second lacune was the existence of subjective weights. Till last year, we used to give weightages either equally or on the basis of subjective judgment. In PI 2019, we have given weights by this technique called principal component analysis. PCA eliminates or rather weeds out subjectivity completely from the model. The third thing was missing in the PI 2018 report was the measurement of delta. In PI 2019, we have made a conscious effort in measuring the performance of the states over a period of time on various human development parameters. I'll be explaining to you in detail about the delta analysis in my subsequent slides. The fourth point was till PI 2018, we had a mixture of governance processes, outcomes, and institutions. We do know that governance is at the intersection of processes, outcomes, and institutions. However, in PI 2019, we have very strategically chosen only those specific indicators which are outcome driven. And if you take only outcome driven indicators, then by default, it takes care of your institutions and also of your processes. The PI 2019 model. So the first tier of the PI 2019 model is the 3 pillars. These 3 pillars are nothing but the 3 dimensions of sustainable development, which are equity, growth, and sustainability. Now, if you look at these 3 pillars, growth, equity, and sustainability, they are in itself, on a standalone basis, very multi-dimensional, or rather very abstract concepts. But we wanted to be very specific in our measurement. That's why we introduced the next tier of in our model, which we call it the themes, and we have a total of 5 themes. And the themes are voice and accountability, government effectiveness, rule of law, regulatory quality, and control of corruption. We have adapted these 5 themes from the worldwide governance indicators, which has been developed by the World Bank. Now, the next tier of our model is the SDGs, which is basically the Sustainable Development Goals. The entire idea behind introducing Sustainable Development Goals was to make sure that our model is at par with the global standards. Especially after the incorporation of the UN 2030 SDG agenda, each and every country is given a set of targets which they need to achieve 2030. So including the SDGs in our framework makes the model very relevant, especially for every state government. You can see here we have 13 SDGs. We all know UN has advocated a total of 17 SDGs, but here you see only 13. The reason behind taking 13 SDGs is to only those specific SDGs where a state has a role to play, because we are measuring the governance of the states. And also, one more reason why we had included the SDGs in our framework was we wanted to see what extra initiatives the state governments are taking in order to implement reforms rather than focusing only on the center's top-down policies. So this was the major idea behind including the SDGs. And at the bottom of our model, we have 49 specific indicators. These 49 indicators helps in measuring each and every theme, and at the outset helps in measuring the 3 pillars, and at the end helps us in arriving at the composite index on the scores and rankings of every state. Yeah. So now the methodology. We started off with an initial set of 100 indicators. We had taken these 100 indicators from our last year's PI, and on those 100 indicators, we conducted factor analysis and picked out only those indicators which were statistically significant. So the next step involved in identifying indicators for PI 2019. How did we arrive at that? We chose only those indicators which were statistically significant from PI 2019, and we added indicators from the Niti Aayog SDG Index of 2018, and also we added indicators from the MOSPI. After getting this bucket of indicators, we again conducted one round of factor analysis so that we get bucket of another indicators, which basically got narrowed it down to the present 49 indicators. The next step was data collection for each and every 49 indicators. And I must mention here, the data we have collected, we have taken all data from the union ministries because we did not want it to be biased against any specific state. So we have not taken any data from any state government's website. We have taken data only from the union government. The next step involved standardization. So we have standardized each and every data set. because it would be completely unfair to compare a huge state like Uttar Pradesh to a small state like Goa. So depending on the nature of the indicator, we have either standardized them on the basis of population or on the basis of area, or also by taking into account the state's income, or rather the gross domestic product. Step was scaling each and every data set in the scale of 0 to 1. Now, the rationale behind doing this step was to make sure that each and every data set is in one unidirectional, because for instance, in case of crime rates, the lower crime rates means it's a better governed, and on the other hand, if you talk about vaccination, higher vaccination means better. So to make sure each and every data set is in the same direction, we have done this step. And next step involved converting each and every data set into a normal distribution with mean 0 and standard deviation 1. The idea behind doing this step was to measure deviations amongst data. If you don't convert everything into a normal distribution, the nuances might not be captured. So this was the major reason. And the next step involved the principal component analysis, which is basically the brain of the entire methodology of arriving at the composite index. So PCA very scientifically have helped in developing a composite index and has given us the scores and rankings for each and every state. This is very quickly, I would tell you how did we did the principal component analysis. So the principal component analysis was applied to each and every nodal level, which was the SDG, theme, and pillar level. And after that, we have aggregated each and every component by a variation of a technique, which is called a Manhattan distance. And after arriving at every pillar level indices, we have averaged all of them to arrive at the composite index, or nothing but the PI 2019. Now I will be presenting to you the key findings from each of the pillar. I won't be revealing the rankings now because it will be launched soon. So the first pillar, which was on equity, which included a gamut of 23 indicators. The first finding, or rather I would say it's got evident, was there exist varying degrees of equality between the states, which basically hinted at there exist degrees of inequality between the states, not only income inequality, but gender as well as social. Second finding, we did a correlation analysis, and we got this finding that in case of the large states, we have defined large states as those states whose population is more than 2 crores. In those states, their performance in the equity parameters does not at all influence the overall performance. In contrary, in case of small states, their performance in the parameters of equity significantly influence the overall performance. Third is we did a regression analysis, and we got to know that if the state focus on these key areas, which includes education, women, children, SCs, STs, and under trial prisoners, then the probability of attaining equality in their state would definitely increase. The fourth finding, there are many, I've listed out many of them, but I'm just reading out the crux of it. The other finding, which rather paints a dismal picture, is crimes against women. The analysis which we did pointed that in the entire country, the crimes against women have increased, and in 25 of the states, I repeat 25 of the states, crimes against women has increased more than 100%. As for instance, in case of Delhi, I'll just take one example, the percentage has increased from 28% to 160.4% from 2006 to 2016. And the last finding was the worker population ratio amongst female in case of, if you're talking about the development, then in case of, if you want progress, the states to progress and all, this ratio should have increased, especially worker population amongst women. But the analysis which we did hinted that the worker population ratio among females have rather declined in 21 of the states. Now the findings from the second pillar, which is on growth. This pillar on growth included a total of 21 indicators. One of the findings was, in case of large states, the performance in the growth parameters significantly contributes to the overall performance. However, in case of small states, the performance in the growth parameters does not have any impact on the overall performance. We also did a regression analysis, and this was a finding that if the states provide infrastructural capacities, like in the form of providing more number of public transport, like more number of buses, or more access to electricity, or providing more banking facilities and promoting business ventures, growth prospects in the states is likely to increase more rather than focusing only on fiscal indicators. Except for Tripura, in each and every state, the unemployment rate has increased between 2011-12 to 2017 and 18. What is more striking is the growth rate in the unemployment rate in the state of Gujarat. In terms of net enrollment ratio, in case of upper primary education, Bihar and Odisha has shown remarkable progress over a decade. Now the findings from the sustainability pillar, which included 5 diverse indicators. The first finding was the top 5 performing states in this pillar, amongst the top 5, 4 belongs to southern India. And the performance in this pillar is almost mirrors exactly with the overall PI 2019 findings. Second, in case of small states, the top 5 performing states, all of them belong to the northeast of the country. Similarly, here we again did a correlation analysis, and we found that in case of every state, be it large or small, the performance in the sustainability pillars significantly influence the overall performance of the state. In case of forest cover, West Bengal has shown the maximum progress in terms of its coverage from the period of 2007 to 2017. Now, I'll quickly tell you what is delta analysis is all about. Here we have done a decadal growth rate to basically understand which all states have made progress over a period of 10 years on key human development parameters, which included health, education, nutrition, and women. So the major idea or the rationale behind doing a delta analysis was to identify those states whose catch-up effect has been more than the top 5 performing states. And also it's kind of rewarding those states who might not be appearing in the top 5, but they have actually made or shown remarkable progress in certain key areas. So we have done this delta analysis, which is a new addition to the PI 2019 study. I will be ending this with the cluster analysis, and I would request all of you to focus attention on this, because this analysis has unfolded a newer side to the Indian economy. Just to give you a brief on why at all we did a cluster analysis was on a pan-India basis, we wanted to understand and we wanted to see if we could get any patterns in the findings from the PI 2019 data. So this cluster analysis generated 3 clusters. First cluster, if you can see, is all the green color ones. This belongs to the first cluster. What are the speciality of this cluster? One is all the top 5 performing states as per the PI rankings fall in this cluster, number 1. Number 2, all the southern India states fall in this cluster. Number 3, all these states perform above average in the parameters of growth, moderately in the parameters of sustainability, and below average in the parameters of equity. Second cluster, the yellow ones, which basically includes all your northeastern states and the state of Jammu and Kashmir. These states showed that they perform above average in the sustainability pillar, moderately in the equity pillar, and below average in the growth pillar. And the third cluster, which is this purple color, all these states which have been cluttered all together. One of the characteristics of this cluster is all the bottom performing states fall in this cluster, number 1. Second is they perform moderately in the parameters of equity, but below average in both the pillars of sustainability and growth. Now here is the nuance of it. The Niti Aayog has identified 100 of the aspirational districts based on various parameters on poverty, health, education, skilling, etc. Now, out of those 100 aspirational districts, 96 of the aspirational districts fall in this cluster. So this means that all the states who are neither doing well in either of the pillars have the maximum number of aspirational districts. To end, Sen versus Bhagwati debate, we all of us know that, which I would just explain. Like, Amartya Sen argues on a standalone basis, equity matters the most. On the other hand, Jagdish Bhagwati debates that no, growth matters the most. PI 2019 has taken one step forward and is making this argument that not only growth or equity matters on a standalone basis, rather both of them are very crucial, coupled with sustainability plays a huge role. So the nexus between growth, equity and sustainability matters the most if you are focusing on the development paradigm of a state. Thank you.
Thank you, Udita, for giving the audience insights on what PI 2019 has to offer. Now the time has come to release the Public Affairs Index 2019. I would request Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan to officially release Public Affairs Index 2019. We will now be revealing the best governed states in the large and small states category. I'm sure everyone is eager to know the results. Without further delay, I would request Mr. Gurucharan to announce the top 5 best performing states in the large and small states category for Public Affairs Index 2019.
So as per the Public Affairs Index 2019 rankings, the top 5 large states in order of performance, number 1 is Kerala, number 2 is Tamil Nadu. So congratulations to the additional Chief Secretary who's come from Tamil Nadu. Number 3 is Andhra Pradesh. Number 4 is Karnataka. And number 5 is Punjab. Among the small states, the best performer is Goa state. So congratulations to Mr. Reddy. Second is Himachal Pradesh. Third is Meghalaya. The fourth is Arunachal Pradesh. And the fifth is Mizoram. Thank you very much.
I now invite Mr. P.S. Reddy, Secretary, Ports, River Navigation, Fisheries and Legal Metrology, Government of Goa, to come on to the dais and take the certificate of Best Governed State, Small States category on behalf of the Government of Goa. I would request Dr. Kasturi Rangan to honor Mr. Reddy with a scroll, a copy of the Public Affairs Index 2019 and a memento. The Public Affairs Index 2019 also recognizes the initiatives certain states have taken based on recommendations of the previous editions of the Public Affairs Index. In this regard, I would invite Ms. Jayashree Raghunandan, Additional Chief Secretary, Planning and Development Department, Government of Tamil Nadu, to kindly come onto the dais and take the certificate of Best State, Large States category to implement reforms based on the Public Affairs Index on behalf of the Government of Tamil Nadu. I would request Dr. Milind Tambe to honor Ms. Raghunandan with a scroll, a copy of the Public Affairs Index report and a memento. I will also take this opportunity to inform you all that the Public Affairs Index 2019 reports are available for sale outside at rupees 870, an introductory discount of 30% only for today. Soft copies of the report can be purchased at a price of rupees 450 plus GST by writing an email to pacfinance@pacindia.org. I now invite Dr. Milind Tambe, Director, Center for Research in Computation and Society, Harvard University, and Director, AI for Social Good at the Google India Research Center, to deliver the keynote address on the use of data for creating social change.
Really very distinguished attendees here. So I'm going to be talking about AI for Social Good. I lead the Center for AI for Social Good essentially at Harvard. And now we are starting a similar effort here at Google India Research Center. And so I hope to collaborate with PAC and with others in order to push this agenda forward. So, with the current progress in AI and multi-agent systems, which is my particular subfield within AI, it is now important to direct these advances towards societal benefits. In my work, I focused on 3 areas: public safety and security, conservation, and public health. In all of these areas, there's a key research problem that we focus on: how to optimize our limited intervention resources when interacting with other agents in these domains. And that's where this multi-agent perspective becomes important. And so I focused on this idea of using multi-agent systems reasoning, particularly this idea of game theory, and also the idea of end-to-end data to deployment systems. So basically saying that we want to go all the way to deploying the solutions we have. So let's start with public safety and security. We have large number of targets to protect, limited security resources, how to schedule or plan our resources taking into account a watchful adversary. We've contributed a new model called Stackleberg Security Games and developed algorithms that have been in use by security agencies in the United States and internationally. With respect to conservation, we have large conservation areas to protect, limited ranger resources. Here we've contributed a new model called Green Security Games. So concrete example is work that we've been doing in Uganda. Taking into account past poaching data, we are able to predict where poachers will set snares and remove them before they kill animals. And we are extending these models towards combating illegal fishing and illegal logging. In the area of public health, we have limited number of public health workers or social workers. So how to optimize the use of these limited resources? Concrete example is work we have done with homeless shelters in Los Angeles to spread information about HIV amongst homeless youth. We are able to show that our AI algorithms are far more effective in picking the peer leaders, the messengers, in order to spread this information compared to traditional approaches. We are now extending some of these ideas towards combating tuberculosis in collaboration with Mumbai Municipal Corporation and with other public health challenges like obesity prevention, suicide prevention, and others. In all of this work, interdisciplinary partnerships are important. And to that end, we've really patrolled with the US Coast Guard on their boats in the ports in New York. We've really patrolled with the World Wildlife Fund or Wildlife Conservation Society rangers in forests. Our students have spent time in homeless shelters, talking to homeless shelter officials. And the immersion here is important in order to understand what problems are we truly trying to solve. And we don't want to sit in our ivory towers and present solutions. Based on the data collected, the next step then is to use machine learning models to make predictions about which cases are high risk and which may be low risk cases. Following that, we want to then prescribe particular interventions. This is where, because we have limited resources, we can't intervene on all the high risk cases. So which cases should we truly intervene on? But the signature of this work on social good is that we don't want to stop here and say we've written a paper, we're done with this work. We really want to field test and deploy whatever innovations we have, understand what weaknesses they may reveal about our models and algorithms, and improve these models, but at the same time, hopefully achieve social impact. So in the rest of the presentation, I will talk about the work we've done in the 3 areas: public safety, conservation, and public health. I'll skip through some of the technical details since we have limited time. Now, all of this work has been published in top AI conferences. These are conferences called ICHCAI, Triple AI, AMAS, and so forth. The point being that this is AI research that is recognized at the highest levels in terms of its quality. So in doing this social good work, we are not compromising on the quality of the AI research that we are doing. If you are interested, there are these edited books that you can buy. If you buy copies of these books, then from the royalties, I can take my students out to a nice dinner. So I hope you do buy them. But really, I want to thank my PhD students and postdocs who have contributed to the work. So on the top right-hand corner of some of the slides, you'll see images of the students who have done the work, whose work I'll present today. So let's start with public safety and security. So this is clearly a global challenge. In the United States, the events of 9/11 were clearly devastating for all of us. I've grown up in Mumbai, and clearly Mumbai has been attacked repeatedly in the past. So for example, 11 July 2006, bombs went off on trains in Mumbai. My mother was actually traveling on one of these trains. Luckily, she got off the train just before the bombs went off. But these kinds of events led me to think about public safety and security as a key challenge. At the time, I was in Los Angeles, and so the chief of airport police approached me to improve security at the LAX airport. His concern was somebody driving a suicide truck into one of the terminals, as happened in Glasgow in 2007. So the question was, 8 inbound roads into the airport, 8 terminals, where and when to schedule checkpoints, where and when to put K9 patrols. The question for me was, can I propose the use of game theory as a way of optimizing limited resources? Can we convince the scientific advisory committees that this was the right approach? Can we convince our AI reviewers that this was the right approach? And can we convince the sergeants on the ground that this was the right approach? But that's what we decided to do. And we proposed a new model called Stackelberg Security Games. And allow me to just explain the details a little bit here. And this is the only model where I'll go into some of the details. And then later on, in the interest of time, I'll continue to move forward more quickly. So imagine that we have a small airport with 2 terminals. LAX is much larger, but let's suppose we have 2 terminals and we have only 1 police unit. So the police could always try to protect Terminal 1. If that happens, an adversary conducting surveillance will attack Terminal 2. The adversary gets a positive reward of 1. The police get a negative reward -1. If the police were to switch and always protect Terminal 2, an adversary conducting surveillance will attack Terminal 1. So any deterministic strategy, the adversary could defeat. Instead, if the police were to use a randomized strategy, a mixed strategy, 60% of the time they're at Terminal 1, 40% at Terminal 2, an adversary conducting surveillance will only know that the police are there 60%, here 40%. What they'll do tomorrow remains unpredictable. These kinds of games are called Stackelberg games in the sense that the defender commits first, the police are out in the open patrolling, the adversary gets to observe and then respond. But we are randomizing the patrols that are being conducted. Now the police already know the randomization is important, but we are going to put more systematicity in how to randomize. These are security games that are played on targets where payoffs are based on whether targets are protected or not. And we are not claiming 100% security because in the real world there is no such thing. We are optimizing the use of limited resources. So this is how we built this armor system for the LAX airport. We start with a game matrix that feeds into a mixed integer program. That's our contribution. Out comes a schedule in the end, basically, that says at 8 a.m., send team 1 to terminal 2, team 3 to terminal 5, team 5 to terminal 6. At 9 a.m., send team 1 to terminal 3, team 2 to terminal 4, and so forth. All of this comes out of figuring out, by solving the game, what is the right probability of putting different units at different terminals. So this was the first such use of computational game theory for operational security. And this started working at the LAX airport in 2007. Soon thereafter, they started catching weapons. So this January of 2009, all of these guns got captured. This led the police department, of course, to be happy with the results. But somebody at the LA City Hall was also thrilled with the results because we were very honored to receive commendations from the city of Los Angeles. That's me and my students. Errol Southers went to United States. Thank you. And Errol Southers went to United
LAX
States
is safer
Congress
today than
to
it
talk
was
about
18
our work.
months
I don't know
ago.
if the sound will
The team of
play,
research led by
but
Dr. Milen
this was his
Tambe
testimony talking about
worked with our department to develop armor. This software randomizes our vehicle checkpoints along airport access roads. And
let me just play this from the beginning.
LAX is safer today than it was 18 months ago. The team of research led by Dr. Milen Tambe worked with our department to develop armor. This software randomizes our vehicle checkpoints along airport access roads and the deployment of our explosives detection canine teams throughout the airport.
Following that, there were news coverage, Newsweek saying armor throws a digital cloak of invisibility, which led my colleagues at the next conference to ask me if I was working on a cloaking device. But this got the attention of the Federal Air Marshals, how to assign air marshals to flights. With thousands of flights, and not every flight can have an air marshal, this is a massive, massive problem. That's 10 to the power 41 different combinations of assigning air marshals to flights. So we solved this problem and developed a system called IRIS to assign air marshals to flights. If you've been on a US air carrier, United, Delta, American, whether there was an air marshal or not on your flight would have been decided by this program. And again, we were very honored to have our work mentioned in the United States Congress and receive a certificate of appreciation from the Federal Air Marshals. We developed another system called Protect for generating patrols for the United States Coast Guard in different ports like Boston and Los Angeles and New York, around the Staten Island Ferry in New York, which completely changed the way the Coast Guard did these patrols. Again, we were honored to receive commendations from the Coast Guard, and again, a mention in the United States Congress.
We're working with the University of Southern California to utilize game theory as a way of optimizing and scheduling our patrol. Makes it harder for somebody to anticipate where the patrols will be.
So this is use of game theoretic randomization to generate different kinds of patrols and completely changing the way these patrols get operated. As was discussed, it is important to measure performance in the field. So how do you measure performance in the field of events that are rare? So the idea was, can we use game theory to do something else where there's lots of incidents and we can measure performance. So therefore, we had LA Sheriff's Department use game theoretic patrols to catch people traveling without tickets on trains in Los Angeles. And we gave them, we sent one unit without our game theoretic patrols and one with, and roughly at the identical times, and tried to measure who did better. And in the end, it turned out that the game theoretic patrols led to 60% more captures of people traveling without tickets. There's also increase in the number of firearms and drugs and so forth captured at the LAX airport after armor was inserted. There's many other such results that we have. I wouldn't have time to go through all of this, mainly to say that we measured the performance of the systems we've deployed. In the interest of time, let me move on to wildlife protection as the next piece of work. So this was work done in Uganda. This is Murchison Falls National Park in Uganda, which I visited. There's wonderful wildlife there, but there's threats to this wildlife. Traps or snares that are used to maim and kill animals in large numbers. Thousands of such snares are kept in the park in order to kill these animals. So to protect these parks, we developed a new model. So we take Queen Elizabeth National Park, divide it into 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer grid square. And now we are trying to combat these boundedly rational poachers. That is to say, we are trying to predict for each grid square what is the probability of finding a snare there. So given past patrol data in that grid square, other features of that grid square, can we predict whether we will find a snare there or not? And with thousands of square kilometers, you can imagine trying to find those grid squares is difficult. But that's the idea, and then we can optimize the patrols. So given we have 12 years of data from Uganda, range of patrol frequency, animal density, distances to roads and rivers for each grid square. And then to test this in the field, we were given this challenge of locating, so these are 2 9 square kilometer areas. This is the first trial we did. These are areas that were not patrolled before or very infrequently patrolled. These are not previous hotspots. So we are asking rangers to go to these areas which are shown by these green dots. They do not overlap with the red dots where previously snares were found by rangers. These green dots are not areas that have been patrolled frequently before or not at all. And now we ask them, go there and you are going to find snares. And I asked my students to do this work and then do it 1 month before a conference deadline. If we find snares, we'll be able to write a paper. If there's no snares, there will not be a paper. And then the rangers went out, and every day they would go and report to us whether they found snares or not. And so for many days, nothing happened. Then a report of a poached elephant with its tusks cut off. We had asked with our machine learning system to get the rangers to the right place because at least we found this poached elephant, but we're too late for this elephant. But then came the news of this whole elephant snare roll being found and removed. So we had asked rangers to go to locations. Poachers were active in these areas, but before they could kill the next set of elephants, we had removed this elephant snare roll. And then following that, a whole antelope set of snare rolls for antelopes were removed. And there's a lot of details in our papers on the capture rates and so forth. But the main point is this started increasing confidence in the machine learning approach in order to remove these snares. To do a further study, we set up these 24 areas in Queen Elizabeth and Murchison Falls National Park. Our machine learning model predicted some of these to be high risk where more snares will be found. Some will be low risk, less number of snares will be found. And we sent rangers out for 6 months trying to look for snares in these parks. Of course, the rangers did not know which our model had predicted to be high risk versus low risk. The question was, are our predictions accurate? And again, these were areas that were infrequently patrolled. And it turned out where we predicted high risk, more snares are found. Where we predicted low risk, less snares were found. And then this has continued even in Murchison Falls. Our predictions have been accurate. So now the wildlife conservation agencies have got a lot of confidence in these methods, but it is my belief that we should continue to stress test these machine learning algorithms. So recent work has been in Sripak Wildlife Sanctuary in Cambodia, where tigers are going to be reintroduced because they've been decimated from this country. And so we just visited it in the spring of 2019. So these are my pictures from the visit. This is a gentleman who was a Khmer Rouge soldier who has become a ranger, other arrests of poachers and so on. Again, we made predictions. These are pictures of snares that have been removed. Predictions have been accurate in the process. The numbers of snare captures have jumped fivefold from 2018 to now in 2019. So Rohit Singh, who's the head of WWF Cambodia, is actually the head of World Wildlife Poaching, Zero Poaching effort. He's telling me, I'm super excited with these results. Let's get going with other countries too this year. And so in collaboration with SMART, which is a collaboration of World Wildlife Fund, Wildlife Conservation Society, other NGOs, Microsoft's AI for Earth, we are now taking our software worldwide to hundreds of national parks around the globe. So this is an effort that is moving forward, and indeed we will start rolling out this software beginning next year. And so this, we also want to protect fisheries and so forth. So far I've talked about using predictions from past data towards the future. More recent work has been trying to do things in the field in terms of real-time information. So there's an NGO called Air Shepherd. They fly drones in South Africa in the Kruger National Park, and they take infrared video at night, and then they send it to a van where there's a human being looking at these infrared videos trying to find a poacher. But if you look at those black and white pictures, it's very hard to find a human being in those black and white pictures. So we built a system called Spot to automatically find poachers from those pictures. So you're trying to find human beings from the infrared video. So we did that. We've developed this system called Spot. We've delivered it, and it's being tested in the Kruger National Park today. So let me turn to public health as the third challenge that we focused on. And here I just quickly want to go through two examples. There are many others that we've worked on. HIV prevention is a major challenge in Los Angeles. The rates of HIV amongst homeless youth are 10 times the rates of normal house population. There's 6,000 homeless youth who sleep on the streets of LA. So the homeless shelters run these public health campaigns where they'll tell peer leaders about HIV. The idea is that word of mouth, the peer leaders will talk to their friends will talk to their friends, and information about HIV will spread in the social network. The question is, of course, which peer leaders do you select? And so this is, by the way, real social network, face-to-face. This is not Facebook social networks. These youth don't have access to Facebook and so forth. So this is a problem in computer science called influence maximization. Given a social network, can you pick the right people in order to spread information? And so we have given this graph G, we are trying to select K nodes in the graph to be the peer leaders. So we've built a new algorithm. So the way the information spreads is that if you tell youth A about HIV testing, there's some chance they'll tell their friend B there's HIV testing, and then both will get tested for HIV. Of course, in the real world, we found that information spread is uncertain. So we developed a new algorithm to spread this information. Then we did a test in the real world. So this is, we recruited 60 youth in two of our algorithm is called Healer. So we recruited 60 youth under two versions of Healer, and 60 youth with degree centrality, which is the former method, which is bring in the most popular youth. And then we selected 12 peer leaders. With the Healer, our algorithm chose peer leaders. With degree centrality, which is bring in the most popular youth, this is the traditional approach, doesn't use an algorithm. The question is, at the end of the day, after we selected the peer leaders, our social work colleagues educated them about HIV. Then after a month, we said, who spread more information? Was it our algorithm that caused more information to be spread, or was the traditional method led to more information to be spread? And conclusion was that the AI algorithms are far more effective in spreading information. Among the non-peer leaders, the people we did not bring in to educate about HIV, 75% got educated about HIV using our algorithm, so they got informed about HIV, and only 25% without our algorithm. Okay, so they got informed about HIV, but did they actually change behavior? And what we find is that where our algorithms were used, 30 to 40% youth started testing for HIV, where the traditional methods were used. In fact, none of them started testing for HIV because a small population got informed in the first place. So not only is information spreading, but actually behavior is changing as well. And so this has led our colleagues in the social work field to be very happy with the results. I'm going to play a video next.
Beautiful way to kind of like marry this tech world with this social service world, like, and how we can kind of go deeper and impact young people and elevate them.
If this group became a really big thing, it could really help out a lot of youth.
So today we have completed a study with 900 youth, and we'll be soon publishing these results from these 3 different homeless shelters. The last bit I wanted to talk about is TB prevention in India. I don't need to tell you that this is a devastating disease. 500,000 of us die every year due to tuberculosis. There's 3 million people who get infected by TB. And so one problem we focused on is non-adherence to TB treatment. So essentially people are supposed to take their medicine for 6 months, but they drop off of treatment, which is obviously bad for them and creates drug-resistant bacteria. So there's around the world this idea of digital adherence tracking. So behind the flap of each pill, there is a number, and people are supposed to call that number to say, I took my medicine today. Health officers, health officials get a track, they get to see who's called each day, and based on that, if somebody has not called for 3-4 days, then they can say, okay, I need to call them, or I need to go to their home and tell them, why haven't you taken your medicine? So we met with health workers in Mumbai, and it seems like one person has a caseload of something like 50 to 100 people. And so they have to track these 50 to 100 people. And so if we can predict in advance who's a high risk, who are the high risk patients, then they may be able to track those patients more effectively. So just by looking at the call patterns, so if I call today at 11, tomorrow at 3 p.m., on Wednesday at 4 p.m., and so on and so forth, can I predict that I'm a person who's going to drop off of treatment? So that's what we've done. So essentially we had as a test phone logs from Mumbai, 15,000 patients, 1.5 million calls. And here's what we are trying to do. Look at these 4 patients. Patient 1 didn't call on day 1, but called the other day, 2 days, all 4 days. Patient 2 didn't call on day 1, day 2, didn't call on day 3, and didn't call on day 5, and so forth. By looking at their call patterns, if we can predict that these 2 patients are high risk and the other 2 are not, meaning the high risk patients are going to drop off of treatment, then we can get the health officials to focus only on those 2 patients. And so that's what we have done. And then we can get them to focus on some of these patients for intervention. So we have shown that, in fact, our method manages to improve prediction of high risk patients compared to their rule-based approach that they have, and improve true positive rate and reduce the false positive rate. So Bill Thies, who's a co-founder of EverWealth Health Solutions, which is active in trying to do this, told us that this work has a lot of potential to save lives. And so we are hoping to trial this approach in Mumbai. and hopefully this will get adopted in Mumbai and other places. So I'll come to the end of my presentation by saying that I see AI as having tremendous potential for social good, for improving society and fighting social injustice. And to that end, it's vital to bring AI to those who have not benefited from it in the global south, and to embrace interdisciplinary work with social workers, with conservation. And in terms of AI researchers, this is a call up to action in terms of stepping out of our labs and into the field. And this is what I intend to do here with setting up this AI for social good effort at Google Research India, is to start projects where we will have AI researchers going out into the field with interdisciplinary efforts in mind, with public health, conservation, and education as 3 areas of priority. So thank you for listening to me. This has really been a great honor, and hopefully this information is of some use as we collaborate in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that very insightful talk. I would now request Dr. Kasturi Rangan, Dr. Tambe, and Mr. Gurucharan to take their seats on the dais. The Public Affairs Center expresses its deep sense of gratitude to our chairman, Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan, not only for taking time out of his busy schedule and gracing the occasion today, but for also providing the PI team with valuable inputs on making the model a robust framework. I would request Mr. Gurucharan to present Dr. Kasturi Rangan with a memento as a token of our gratitude. We are also grateful to Dr. Milind Tambe for accepting our invitation and gracing us with his presence today. So I would request you to kindly honor Dr. Tambe with a memento. We also extend our gratitude to our board members of PSC for their support and presence at today's event. We would like to thank the senior officials from the government of Karnataka for taking their time out today and attending the event. PSC would also like to extend its gratitude to the media for their continued support. We would extend our sincere thanks to Mr. Mallikarjun for the designing of the report and making it visually appealing. Thanks are also due to Eagle Printers for the printing of the report. This event would have not been possible without the contribution from Bharat Petroleum and Bangalore Surgicals. The PI team would like to extend our gratitude to everyone at PSC who have contributed to ensuring this event is a grand success. Last but not the least, we are thankful to every one of you who have taken time out today for the launch of the Public Affairs Index. Thank you so much.